Welcome everybody. Want to remind everybody that we're on a calendar year membership. So we'll be beginning our membership drive for 2023, probably in the next month or so. I'll say more about that undoubtedly at the holiday party. Want to give a shout out to our e-board members and just remind everybody that our next e-board meeting is next Wednesday at noon, and it'll be by Zoom. Probably be a fairly short meeting. Our meetings from now on, the e-board meetings from now on, will be on the Wednesday following the luncheon or following the luncheon Zoom meeting, whichever we're doing. I think that's a little easier for people to remember than third Wednesday of the month. That got to be a little cumbersome. Let's see. Peter, can you see if we have any electeds that I should tip our hat to?
Fantastic question, as always. I was actually going to pass around to folks, but I do see John Weed from the Alameda County Water District here, a longtime member. So welcome, John.
Welcome, John.
Vladimir, I forget if you're an elected official at this point, to be honest with you, but you can feel free to say hello.
Hi there. I'm on the Los Altos Elementary School Board.
Thank you. I thought so.
And I'm running for re-election.
Excellent. I see Rena Laurie. Rena, are you currently elected and then you're running as well, I think?
No, I'm not currently elected, but I'm running for the Santa Clara County Board of Education, Trustee Area 7.
Excellent. Excellent. Congratulations and condolences on running for office. And of course we have our featured guest today, so we'll introduce her in just a second. I want to shout out, I do see Dave Beanie from the Santa Clara and San Benito County Building Trades, Executive Director. Very good to see you, as always, Dave. Yeah, wave. If anyone else here is an elected official or a candidate, that you can free to come off mute and introduce yourself now. I'll give you a few seconds.
Hello, Jonathan Weinberg, member of the Los Altos City Council.
Hey, Jonathan, good to see you. And I believe you're also a member of the club too. So thank you for that. All right. And I'm admitting now Steve Preminger, a former Santa Clara County Party Chair. Good to see you, Steve.
And also former longtime president of the Democratic Century 2021 Club. Correct.
Thank you for being here, sir. Looking very safe as always. Keeping the county safe from COVID. All right. Well, without further ado, then, Craig.
Let me just also point out that no meeting is complete without our illustrious Democratic Party County Chair, Bill James, who's also with us today. And before we proceed with the program, I want to just let people know that at the recent fundraising dinner that the county party had, our big annual event, the club was awarded with a very nice award, which I will now read to everybody. It says the Santa Clara County Democratic Party presents its Democratic Club of the Year Award to the Democratic 21st Century Club, September 23rd, 2022. So yay for us. That was in significant part because of our ongoing #1 raison d'etre, which is supporting the Democratic Party headquarters over on Moore Park Avenue. So with no further ado, I will turn it over to our illustrious VP of Programs, Peter Allen, and he will introduce our speaker.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for coming today. So sorry for the last minute, well, sort of last minute notice about moving online, but we wanted to make sure that as many people could attend as possible and that we had a nice smooth event. So we decided to move on to Zoom. We should be back in person next month. We plan to be. And with that in mind, I want to make a quick announcement. I'm going to throw a link into the chat if you would like to go ahead and RSVP for next month's lunch in advance. It's going to be Veterans Day, November 11th, which is our typical second Friday. And we're going to feature our election recap, our usual election recap. Every 2 years, we have Dr. Terry Christensen in to give a recap of our local elections and the impacts that we should expect from those, and then also put that into context with the larger election that we have going on with the midterms. So please sign up to join us. It's going to be very exciting. Dr. Christensen is a fabulous speaker. He's a longtime member of the club and a longtime friend who we all know. And we'll also be celebrating, obviously, the folks in our club who have served in our armed forces, and also all of our relatives and family and friends who have done so as well. So please join us on Friday, November the 11th. And then I'm going to throw another link into the chat for y'all. Coming up on Friday, December 9th, the PDC, the Peninsula Democratic Coalition, and the Century Club will be co-hosting our second annual joint holiday party. It's going to be at Michael's in Mountain View as usual. And this is an event where we invite and we honor all of our local Democratic elected officials. So you were all, if you're a Democratic elected official, you were introduced yourself earlier, please, and or if you're elected in November, please come and join us in December. That is an event for you to be able to have a minute or a couple minutes even, depending on how many folks show up, to talk about all the great things that you're doing in your jurisdiction, all the things you want to do, all your goals for the next year, and really for us to honor the work that you do and the hard work that you put in. So if you know an elected official, a Democratic elected official who maybe doesn't know about our club, please let them know about the event, invite them, have them come. We'd love to have as many folks as possible. We had, I think, over 100 folks at our holiday party last year, including tons of elected officials from, state senate all the way down to dog catcher. So, which is a very important role, by the way. Don't do it. Don't catch dogs. Adopt a dog. So without further ado there, if you have any questions, you can always ping us at info@demcenturyclub.org. If you want to, if you have any questions about our programs, and just hit our website, you can also contact us there.
And Peter, you want to let the members know how you would like to handle Q&A at the end?
I would absolutely like to do that. So right before I introduce Gail, our special guest for today, yes, if you have any questions during her presentation, feel free to drop those into the chat, and we will get to them as soon as she's done with the initial presentation. She's going to leave a lot of time for Q&A. So, and it's going to be a wide-ranging conversation. So it should be pretty fun, I think. She's got a wide depth of experience, which you'll hear about soon. And then you're also welcome to come off mute later on and ask a question live of Gail. But if you feel more comfortable typing into the chat, feel free to do that. And I see that Gail's got a staffer here, Rhiannon. Nice to see you. I'm sure she'd be down if you have any follow-up questions. I'm sure she'd be down to pop her email into the chat that you can and you can contact her to get those questions to Gail's campaign. All right. So if that's okay, I'll jump into just introducing our guest speaker, Craig.
Yes, please do.
All right. Well, Gail Pellerin served as the chief elections official in Santa Cruz County from 1993 until her retirement in December of 2020. And as the county clerk, she managed all elections conducted in the county and served as the commissioner of civil marriage. She has 35 years of experience in public service, over 7 years working for the state legislature in Sacramento, including for an assembly office representing Morgan Hill, and 27 years working for the people of Santa Cruz County. In June 2018, she was elected to her 4th term as county clerk. Pretty impressive. She's served as the president of the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, and she's also served as co-chair of the Secretary of State's Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee. She's passionate about voting rights and voter access, and she's going to talk a little bit about that in the context of her current race to serve in the state assembly for District 28, which includes quite a huge chunk of Santa Clara County. And I'm going to let her tell you more about that and how we can all assist her in that regard, because we really want to see her get elected and bring in a good Democratic voice to the state assembly. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Gail Pellerin.
Hello and welcome to everybody. It's so great to see your faces. I wish we could all be in person, but this is the next best thing, huh? So yeah, we're in full election mode. All that work leading up to this November 8th election really peaked this week when people got ballots in the mail. So hopefully everyone has their ballot. I still have not received my ballot, so hopefully it comes today in the mail. But yes, California now has a system where every voter is mailed a ballot, and then each county decides whether they're going to be doing a vote center model or a typical polling place model. And I think most of the counties here in the Bay Area have all opted for the vote center model. So voting began on Monday. People could have gone to their county elections office to vote. Some counties have more than one satellite office that's open 29 days before the election. Most of us that are doing the vote center models are opening up their 10-day vote centers on October 29th. So that's when the voting in person begins at locations throughout a county. And then we bump up the number of locations for that 4 days before the election. So you'll see more locations opening for that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday before that November election. So just a little bit of information about this Assembly District 28. So we currently do have 52% of the district is registered with the Democratic Party, and 18.81%, so just shy of 19, are registered with Republicans. And it's always been an issue with me with this American Independent Party. How many of you guys have heard about the American Independent Party? It's one of the minor parties, and it's the largest registration of our minor parties. So there's currently 3% of the voters registered in the 28th Assembly District are registered with the American Independent Party. And people are confused about this party. They think it's independent state of mind over American Independent Party, which is a very specific party with a set of values that is possibly even more conservative than the Republican Party. So we have often had times, especially in presidential elections, this comes up a lot, because in a presidential election, you have a closed ballot for president. So if you are registered with the American Independent Party, you would get a ballot with the American Independent Party presidential candidates on it, and people will get those names, and they're not the names they've seen in the news or on the debates. And so people were very upset about that. But now California has same-day voter registration, so we can rectify that quickly for people coming in. But there was a time when they had to vote provisionally, and then we'd have to go to court with them to get a judge to rule to allow that ballot to be counted. It was quite an ordeal. Also, the important thing with this election too is voting is the great equalizer. Your vote counts as much as Elon Musk's vote. Everyone has access to voting. It's simple, it's easy. California has gone above and beyond to remove barriers, so everyone gets a ballot in the mail. You can vote in person early, you can vote in person later. You can, there's a system now called remote accessible vote by mail balloting. So if you're in the military or overseas, or you are a voter with a disability, you can basically get your ballot emailed to you. You can mark it using your computer device, print it, and then return it in the authorized method for return. So there's just so many ways to vote now, and so many times when, during the voting period, people can vote. So there's really no excuse not to vote. Yet in our primary election we held in June, our overall voter turnout in Assembly District 28 was 38.81%. Now, Santa Cruz beat out Santa Clara on turnout. We had just shy of 44% turnout in Santa Cruz County. Santa Clara County was just around 37%. And if that were a grade on the test, we'd be failing. And so I think it is so important for this election that we really get out the vote, because elections are determined by the people who stay home, the people who stay silent, the people who believe their voice doesn't matter. So our work and outreach really needs to be targeting everybody, making sure people understand how easy it is to vote. Voting is not a test. Now, in this election, good news is we only have 7 state propositions. I have worked in elections where we had 17 state propositions, and voters get fatigued. When they have that many measures on the ballot, sometimes they just sort of like they can't go any further. So this is a really manageable ballot, and all of the contests for a state constitutional office, it's just 2 names on the ballot. For Congress, 2 names on the ballot. State Assembly, the top 2. County supervisor, if there's a runoff, it's those top 2. And then you got your cities, school districts, special districts, and of course your local measures. So everyone should be getting there's 2 voter guides that you'll get in the mail, most likely, unless you've requested it to be online. I myself have gone paper free, and I get my state voter guide and my county voter guide through my email, so I can just look at it online. But your county voter information guide is basically mailed to every single voter. And in that county voter information guide, you'll have all the information about your local contests. And you'll have actually a picture of your ballot, which is called a sample ballot. And it has all your candidate statements in there for all those local offices. So that guide, again, I have not received, I haven't even gotten the email yet for that one. So hopefully I'll be getting that soon, but hopefully in Santa Clara County, you're starting to receive those voter guides. And then the state voter information guide will have information on all the state constitutional offices, and we'll also have the information on each of the state propositions. And what I find useful on the state propositions is looking at, who supports it and who's against it. In fact, people have found that such valuable information. There was a piece of legislation enacted into law this session that is now going to be printed on your ballot. So not in 2020, in 2022 this year, but in 2024, that's a new law that will go into effect. I've got some concerns about that because real estate on a ballot is very precious. And the more stuff we put on it, the longer the ballot becomes, the more ballot cards you'll have, the more you have to translate perfectly and accurately, and the more it's going to cost in postage. So we'll see how that one gets implemented. But so as I said, ballots have dropped, voting has begun in those county elections offices. Drop boxes are out and about. So maybe in the course of you running errands out in your community, you're seeing those easy ballot drop boxes. I personally use that as an easy way for me to return my ballot, because I know those ballots get picked up every day. When you drop that ballot in the mail, that's a great method as well. And postage is paid, so you don't have to hunt for a stamp to put on that return ballot envelope. But when you do put something in the mail, it's now out of the hands of you as the voter. It's out of the hands of the elections officials, and it goes through the postage process, the USPS process. And they do phenomenal work. They manage a lot of mail going through their systems. And I have seen mail take up to 10 days or more to get from point A to point B. So it could take a longer time. I've also received mail, maybe months later, in a baggie where a ballot got stuck in one of the processing steps along the way. It got torn in half, and I get that half of a ballot back to me. Sometimes when I got that during the course of voting, I would try to, put that puzzle together and figure out which voter that is, and then try to reach out to that voter to let them know your ballot was, torn in the process of delivery through the post office. Let's get you a new ballot and get you voted. So every now and then we have situations with the post office. So those ballot drop boxes are safe, they are secure, and dropping it off there is really, that removes any chance of anything going wrong through the post office. But the other good news about our current election laws in California, again, making sure people have access to voting, and we don't want to penalize somebody for procrastination. If you have that ballot in your hand and it is November 8th and you want to mail it because that's the way it's going to work for you, or maybe you're not even in your home county, you're traveling or somewhere, you want to make sure that ballot is postmarked on November 8th. And then if the elections official receives it by 7 days after the election, which is November 15th, then they can go ahead and count it as received on time. So if anyone is mailing a ballot back, make sure it is indeed postmarked, and dropping it in that mailbox after 5 when the post office has closed means it will not get postmarked November 8th. And I can't tell you how many trays of mail I would get that was postmarked the day after the election. And by law, I have to challenge all those ballots as being late. I'm talking in first person like I'm doing this now, but back in the day when I was the county clerk, that's how we did it. So it is heartbreaking to see so many of those ballots coming back and that missed that postmark deadline. I've even had voters before who FedEx their ballot back to me. And FedEx doesn't always do overnight 24 hours or UPS. And I would get somebody who had spent $35 to mail that ballot back, and I would get that overnight mail on the day after the election, and I would have to challenge it. So, so just really, make sure you mail that in time and make sure it gets postmarked. The other thing we don't penalize voters for is bad penmanship, or you forgot to sign that vote by mail ballot envelope. We have to have a signature on that envelope in order to count the ballot. It does not have to be an exact match. If you are registered as Gail Louise Pellerin, I don't have to put that whole thing. I could just do G Pellerin, We're looking for comparison. But if you fail to sign the envelope or your signature no longer compares to the signature on file, we're going to contact you. The elections officials will contact you and let you know that you have the opportunity to basically cure that signature by submitting another piece of paper, a signed oath that that is your ballot, this is your signature, and you just have to get that to the county elections official 2 days before they certify. So that's kind of a rolling deadline. You know, the deadline to certify is December the 8th. So if counties are certifying well before that, you need to find out what their drop dead deadline is on those ballot signature cure letters. So that's gotten a few voters in trouble along the way. Another good thing with California is that we now have anywhere return. So when I was county clerk, I have a very active UCSC campus. I always made sure we had voting on campus. We have a drop box on campus. And so and these voters are from all over the state of California. And if there's a Los Angeles voter who has their ballot, and you know, I have 2 adult kids that went through college, and they would call me on election day around 3 o'clock and say, where's my ballot? And how am I voting on this? And so they were putting that together at the last minute and then returning it. And so, yeah, my daughter, when she went to UC Davis on election day, she voted her ballot, and then she dropped it at a drop box on the Davis campus. And then Yolo County, when they collected that, and days after the election, they then sent that ballot to Santa Cruz. So that's happening all over the state of California, with voters dropping off their ballots anywhere in the state of California. And all that work needs to be done after November 8th, when counties get all those ballots in, they figure out which ones are theirs, which ones go to other counties, and then sort them by the other counties. So you're sending Tulare their ballots, and you're sending Imperial their ballots, and San Francisco their ballots. So it's quite a process to make sure all those ballots go to the right location. So a lot of people like in-person voting. Rhiannon, who's on this call with us here, who's my campaign aide, she was one of those overseas voters. She went to school over in England, and we always made sure that she had her ballot via email, and she was able to vote that ballot and print it. And as an overseas voter, she was able to fax it back or mail it back. For, you know, if you're voting and you're somebody who wants to vote in person, this year Rhiannon's like, I want to go vote in person, and because she hasn't done that in a long time. And we are mailing her a ballot, but you don't have to surrender that ballot. There used to be a requirement that you had to bring that ballot in to surrender it, to then get a regular ballot in return to vote in person. Now that everybody's tied into the election information database system, all the poll workers have to do is look up your voter record. They'll void that ballot sent to you on the spot, and then hand you a regular ballot to go vote. If you are in a county that has a traditional polling place model, it's not the same thing. And so they may require you to return the ballot before you get a regular ballot. But there's always, I mean, California was a leader on provisional voting. And that was that safety net voting, that anytime a voter showed up to vote, and for some reason, the poll worker cannot determine with 100% certainty their right to vote, that they're a qualified voter, they would always let the voter vote, and they would just put it in a separate envelope. In Santa Cruz County, we use the color pink. So pink envelopes were those ballots where we had questions. Poll workers would get that voter voted, that ballot would come back to us in the pink envelope, telling us that we needed to do more research to determine what the status of that voter is before we can count it. So if you're in a county that still is doing polling place, they're going to have provisional voting. And these vote center counties, there's really not much cause for a provisional vote. Every now and then I would have a voter who was here on a presidential election day and had failed to vote in their home state. So I remember having a voter visiting Santa Cruz County from New York on an election day, president's on the ballot. She insisted on voting. And so I got her a Santa Cruz County ballot and put it in a pink envelope saying the voters registered in New York. And of course, I cannot count that ballot, but she had the option of going to court and having a judge determine whether that ballot should be sent to New York. And then that would have to be another New York case over there. But anyway, she never did pursue it. She just felt good casting that ballot and being able to say she voted, even though we could not count it. And then people also go to vote in person to get a replacement ballot. Sometimes, you know, people misplace their ballots all the time. They never got it in the mail. Their dog ate it. People spill coffee on it, or all sorts of things happen to ballots. So getting a replacement ballot's easy to do in person, or you can just call your elections official and they'll send you one. And a lot of voters come in to get assistance. So under the Help America Vote Act, every voting location must have a voting system where a voter with a disability can vote independently and privately. So what that means is if I am not able to read because I'm visually impaired, I need to have an audio ballot that is read to me that I could then make my selections without asking anybody to assist me in voting. So every location will have an accessible voting system as well. And some people like assistance. They want somebody to sit down with them and help them mark their ballot. I've done that a number of times for voters in residential care facilities or voters who are not super comfortable voting on their own, and I'll sit down with them and I read the ballot to them, and then I would mark the ballot the way they've instructed me to mark it. There's a lot of online tools too. I mean, data, what's happened with technology and voting is just super exciting. So we've got registering to vote online now. I remember back in the day when we couldn't do that. It was all paper-based, and we had deputy registrars of voters out there registering voters. And now we have this easy tool online, registertovote.ca.gov. Boom, takes like 3 minutes to register and you're golden. Also through DMV now, when you go to DMV through Motor Voter, there's a program where you would check a box to update your voter registration. So I would call that more automated registration through DMV. And then it's always a good idea to check your voter status. Another simple thing to do, voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. You go online to the Secretary of State's website, make sure they have your name and address exactly as it needs to be for your ballot to arrive to you safely. And then there's tools on finding out where to vote. So you can easily go to the Secretary of State's website, or each county will have a link to as far as their voting locations and their hours, and they will vary depending on county. And then the other tool I love is the ballot tracking. So where's my ballot? So there's a way you can get, in fact, many of you probably already got an email or a text from your local elections official or Secretary of State's office saying your ballot was in the mail, so you knew it was coming. So that's another great tool that's available out there as well. But it's also a good tool on the back end to make sure that they've received your ballot and that there's no problems with it and it's going to be counted. So it's really important for voters to follow up and make sure that their ballot is getting to the right place at the right time. And then you get, like I said, you can also get your voter information guides online as well. And another great tool I love is Voters Edge. League of Women Voters does this, and that's another place that candidates, if you're a candidate out there, make sure you get your information out on Voters Edge, because it's a free service where you put in your top 3 priorities, link to your website. It's a great resource for voters as well to get more information. And of course, we have David Beanie here with South Bay Labor Council, and there's so many great groups like South Bay Labor Council, CTA, Democratic groups who put out their information as well as far as suggestions on how to vote. And those are great tools as well for people to use when they're trying to navigate their way through the ballot. So I'm sure there's still a need for people to work at the vote center. So if you know anybody who's looking for a front row seat on democracy, working in the polls is a great thing for them to do. Legal permanent residents can serve. 16 and 17-year-olds can now serve. So young people, I loved getting young people serving in the polls because it really planted those important seeds of civic engagement and responsibility and the importance of voting and the precious right it is for people to vote. So love getting those young people out there. And always, always, always there's a need for people who speak other languages. I know in our county, Santa Cruz County, we always needed Spanish and Mandarin and Tagalog speakers. Santa Clara, I think, has 8 or 9 different languages that they're targeting. So anybody who speaks another language is really, really essential to be working out there to assist voters. Lots of concerns about voting security, and I've done a lot of work around that area, and the state of California has a really robust system to be monitoring all these potential attacks on the system. There's an Office of Cybersecurity in the Secretary of State's office now that's constantly monitoring 24/7. There's a voter protection committee through the Assembly Democrats. I was working with them after I retired as county clerk. It's a great organization. They're going to have boots on the ground, people out there monitoring the voting locations. They have a checklist that I put together for them. They're going to be checking to make sure everything's accessible, the language information's there, and that voting is happening smoothly. Bottom line is, if you see something, say something. I would oftentimes get a call a week later from a voter who saw something or had a bad experience, and it's just like, if you let me know on election day, we'll be able to resolve it. So if you yourself are out voting and you come across something that doesn't seem right, contact your local elections official. They really, really want to do a good job. So let them know what's happening so they can correct it. And there's a lot of concern right now about the election official security. So there's been threats, and people are concerned. There's just the amount of division and hatred that we're seeing, and people that are still believing in the big lie and that voting is not secure and safe and accurate is just very unsettling. And so I know that my friends out there working in the election world are concerned about that, but nothing will stop them. They are the democracy warriors of the state, and they are out there making sure that every voter has access to voting. So, but yeah, if you do go to the polls, thank your poll workers, thank the elections workers for being there. That little bit of gratitude goes a long way. And then if you are out there on election day, there's no electioneering with 100 feet of a voting location or a ballot drop box. So if you see anything like that, let your elections official know. They may do exit polling. Media will be there with 20 feet, 5 feet out. They're able to ask people questions about voting. Like I said, the California Democratic Party will be out poll monitoring. The Republican Party will also be out poll monitoring. And there'll be other groups and organizations. I know Common Cause has done poll monitoring, ACLU, Asians Americans Advancing Justice. Lots of different voter advocacy groups are out there monitoring the voting locations as well. So we're 25 days out on election day, and I know I am super excited about having election day be over with. And so we work so hard up to that November 8th day. And, as a candidate, I'm very pins and needles waiting for that first vote report that comes out soon after the polls close at 8 o'clock. So polls will close at 8, and then you'll see results starting to come out. Sometimes it will be 8:30 or later before a county will post those first returns. And I know how hard it is to wait. Patience is so important during this time. So as you'll get that first report out, and then the vote centers will start coming in with their vote totals, and they will be added into the election night totals. And then by the end of the night, you'll see what's called a semi-official election night report. And that could happen maybe before midnight or it could happen after midnight. But the reality is every ballot that is in the possession of the registrar of voters that was ready to be counted will be put into that vote. But what happens, we are a creature of procrastination. We like to put things off, and a lot of voters will be handing those ballots in that they received in the mail on election day. So what I have seen as a trend is that it's very, very possible we will count more ballots after election night than on election night, because voters hang on to those. And we have the ballots that need to be cured, and we have the ballots coming in from other counties, and we have the ballots that were dropped in the mail that haven't gone through the process yet, we haven't even received yet. So thousands and thousands and thousands of ballots will come in after election day, and those will be qualified and able to be added into the count. So patience is important, very, very important. And the process, the life of a mailed ballot is quite extensive. When we first get it, I know in our county, there's a tab that covers your signature. So that comes off first. That's a human process. And then it goes through and the signature gets checked against the signature on file. And then once that happens, it goes through a ballot machine that slices the ballot envelope open. And then it will sort it down to different levels. So it's a very labor intensive process. And then you sit in large groups with all these vote by mail ballots and you actually extract them. Human beings will do that. They need to unfold them. They need to look at them front and back and look at if there's any stray marks or changes of votes, because people will change their mind and people will do interesting things when you give them a pen and a piece of paper, and they'll give you nice little notes or nasty little notes or all sorts of things we'll see on ballots. So that all needs to be cleaned up. And then those ballots, some ballots have to get remade and 2-person teams. So it's a very extensive process. The law gives election officials 30 days to certify the election. They do a complete audit of all the votes. Some counties will do updates daily, others do not. There's a manual recounting process that takes place as well, where every contest has to be manually recounted. And so there's just a lot that we do during those final days. And it's interesting because with the state legislature, the new class will get sworn in on December 5th, which is before the vote is certified. And I've actually seen times when somebody has been sworn in as a state assembly member, and then once the final tally takes place, they didn't really make it, so they go home, and then the new person comes up and they get sworn in. So the deadlines don't really jive with the certification of the vote. So that will be interesting to see. And I have seen contests be very close. Every single vote counts. We had a Capitola City contest where there was a 1 vote difference, 1 vote. We had a statewide race, state controller in June of 2014, statewide between the winner and the person who didn't win were 481 votes statewide. And I've had contests that were ties where at the end of the day, after we count and certify everything, tie vote, exactly. No clear winner because that's a tie. And the law basically has you resolve a tie vote by lot, by chance. So you could flip a coin, you could pick a card. I have always suggested musical chairs. Nobody has ever taken me up on that. I thought that would be fun. Play some music, have a seat, stop the music. Whoever's in the seat wins. But no one's ever done that one. So I'm excited to run for this office. What motivated me to run for this office is in Santa Cruz County, we have never elected a woman to an office higher than countywide. So we set our sights out to find somebody to run for the seat in 2024 when Mark Stone was termed out. Of course, he decided this year he was not running for re-election, so everything got accelerated. I am proud and honored to be the top vote getter from that primary election. And I'm working on the issues that I find important in my life, important in your life, and things that I want to champion in Sacramento include mental health, housing, the homeless crisis, and environmental protection. So those are probably my top 3, but I also am very interested in education and public safety and just making sure we have vibrant, thriving communities for people to live, and making sure that people who are working in our communities can afford to live in our communities. So I'm excited. This year, we will have the 3rd largest number of new members coming into the state assembly. We're looking at 27 open seats. The last time there was a record of that was in 2012 when there was 38 out of the 80 members were brand new. And before that, you have to go back to 1934 when 39 new members came in. So this will be the 3rd largest class, and I'm super excited. And I will never lose sight of the fact that I work for you. I believe democracy thrives best when everybody has a seat at the table. So I look forward to working with all of you, and I will take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gail. And thank you again for the time that you're giving us today. We know that's the most valuable thing on any campaign is time. So we really appreciate you spending it with us and letting us know how you can, how we can assist you. Craig, I don't know if you would like, I can moderate questions. And
Yes, please do. And I have one, but let's let the members go first.
Okay. Well, we've got at least one in the chat right now, and thanks, Rhiannon, for posting an interactive map of the district. I was actually like frantically searching for the current map because I know everything got redistricted after the last census. So trying to find the current map was actually kind of a challenge. So, and that's for me, and I'm pretty well attuned to things. So probably pretty hard for everyone else. So thanks for posting that link. It's in the chat now. Jonathan from the Los Altos City Council pops in with a question in the chat. In the event that a county registrar or another election supervisor is a 2020 election denier, what power or tools might they have to affect an actual change in the results of the election? And do they have any power to do that?
Yeah, that's concerning. And we actually had, I think, 3 registrars in the state of California this year who were challenged in the primary by an election denier. Luckily, the 3 did get reelected and elected outright in the primary, and they're not in a runoff. But the reality is that everything we do is open and transparent. So no one is ever left alone with ballots or ballot programming. Everything is checked and balanced. There's a paper trail for everything. And you're required to work in teams of 2. And there's a chain of custody when ballots go from like somebody who's picking them up from the ballot drop box and then handing them over to somebody in the office. So there's so many checks and balances and really extensive audits in the state of California. And I'm sorry, I didn't talk a lot about voting rights because, I mean, California is such a leader on voting rights and voting integrity. And it is so heartbreaking to see what's happening in other states that are trying to create more and more barriers to people to vote. But it is a concern, and it's a concern nationwide if we do end up, and there's some Secretary of States on the ballot in states this year that will be horrible if they get elected and with their views and values.
I'm thinking of Arizona as one. I know my wife and I were just down there for a vacation recently during their primary, and the ads and the vitriol you'd see out there. It's just amazing.
Horrible.
It's a different world.
Yes.
I see Lynn has her hand up. Lynn, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to ask your question, or if you need to, I can unmute you. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Hi, Gail.
Hi.
I'd definitely vote for you if you were in my district.
Thank you.
2 things. One, I was a poll inspector for years up in San Mateo County, and I was kind of disheartened when they all vote by mail because I love doing the precinct stuff. Do you support Medicare for all?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And
Great.
in this budget year, California made a huge investment in providing universal health care, and we are so close to bringing it through the finish line.
Right, because Colorado plans to reintroduce our single payer bill
Yes.
from last year in February. And I'm hoping that the new 27, the Democrat, new legislators will vote yes on it so we can get it passed. So glad to know that you will vote yes. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, and I've been talking to Ash about that bill as well. So hopefully we'll be working together on that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. It's a great question. And something I know we're all very concerned about. Craig, I'm going to kick it to you, but really quickly, because it would follow up on that question a little bit or piggyback on Lynn's question. Gail, you mentioned that California is obviously a leader in voting access and voter rights. I'm a passionate believer in voter access and voter engagement, and I feel like at this point we're doing everything, especially in Santa Clara County and Santa Cruz County, we're doing everything we can to make voting as easy as possible for everyone, outside of moving the election to a different date, maybe like a Saturday or something, or a holiday, making it a holiday. I would love to hear any ideas you have, because we're still challenged with, obviously the turnout was not that great in June. It is a midterm primary, so we can't expect a ton, but it would be great to have more than 50% people determine who it is that we in the general election can vote for say mayor of San Jose or another municipality, right? So I'm curious to know if there's anything you see as low-hanging fruit or maybe high-hanging fruit that you can go after as an assemblywoman or with your colleagues to increase voter turnout and engagement, and maybe push back on the apathy that we see with a lot of voters these days.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a problem, and it frustrates the heck out of me. And I try to do a lot of innovative things in Santa Cruz to increase voter turnout and interest, including purchasing a vote mobile So think taco truck, but with ballots where I can drive to farmers markets, residential care facilities,
Oh,
CZU,
nice.
fire damaged area, provide voting pop-up anywhere I could get a signal with my cradle point. So that was super successful. And I would love to see more counties doing that as well. Civic education, I think, is huge. Talking to our young people, getting them involved and understanding the power of their voice, and getting them to be voters early on. So I love the 16 and 17-year-old voter registration, serving in the polls, I think are really good tools as well. And in our office, you know, we always did a turnout pool where everybody bet $1 on what the turnout was going to be. And every election, I would put my dollar on 100%, because that was my job. My job was to ensure that every voter had access to voting, and that I really expected high turnout. I expected people to vote. And I was out when I was talking to the media, that was my position. I would never buy into the, oh, they say it's really slow at the polls. Is it slow there? Absolutely not. We have 100% turnout in our office. I challenge your office to have 100%. We need to change the conversation. We need to be excited about voting again. We got 25 days out. I can't see you all raising your hand, but everyone raise their hand. And I want you to promise me every single day, you're going to do something to encourage voters to vote. If you're in the grocery store, ask, hey, did you get your ballot yet? Or, you know, did you make a plan for voting? Are you going to vote? Talk to people everywhere you go. Send out emails, make phone calls, help a campaign, knock on doors. This is so critically important. And make no mistake, democracy is on the ballot this November. And we need to elect people like myself, who will be a fighter for voting rights, a fighter for reproductive rights, a fighter for LGBTQ rights, a fighter for safe, affordable communities, a fighter for working families and prevailing wage. I mean, it is so important we elect people. And so often, like I said before, that voters, you can't count uncast votes, right? And there's thousands of them. And that's what tipped the scales. And when Trump was elected, were the people who stayed home and thought Hillary had it in the bag. Don't ever assume. Voter behavior is something very difficult to track and predict. So every vote, every voice counts, and just, make a commitment. Every day you're going to do something.
I saw a lot of hands go up there, so that was great. Thank you so much for that. That was great. Got me fired up. I want to go out and knock some doors.
Yay!
Yep, I'll take the baby with me. Craig, you had a question for Gail. You're on mute.
Gail, we had a speaker a few months ago, David Bloom of Whiskey Hill Farms and Bloom Distillation Incorporated. And he's in Watsonville. His expertise, I'm wondering if you've ever heard of him or if you're familiar with him.
I've heard of him, and I missed that meeting, so I don't know a lot.
Okay. He's an expert in biofuels, alcohol to be more specific, and also regenerative agriculture. So that actually was my question, was just if you were familiar with him. And if not, I'm going to send you an invitation. Zoe Lofgren is drafting some legislation at the federal level to help incorporate alcohol and other biofuels into our national transportation system. And her next visit to the farm, again in Watsonville, is going to be on November 4, which unfortunately is a little before the election. So, but maybe one of your staff or somebody.
Yeah.
And if not,
on the call still, so she'll look into that and see what the.
cool. And if not, then we can do it after the election when you're solidly ensconced in Sacramento.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
I have learned, one thing that has been just so rewarding in this process is I have learned so much, and I have enjoyed getting out there and meeting people, and it's just been delightful, and I'm just very honored to be here with all of you and to have met many of you in person, and look forward to meeting you if I haven't already. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Ashley in the chat says she was recently trained as a poll worker and was surprised there was no talk of sign language interpreters at vote centers. Have you heard any talk about this issue?
So we worked, I served on the Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee. And so as far as if there is a poll worker who speaks sign language, that would be on their badge that they do speak it. We do try to recruit people to meet all the needs of our voters and all the different language needs. So, but there's no mandate for that, no. And we do have best practices as far as if somebody is speaking sign language, there's always note paper where you can write notes back and forth to communicate, which is not the best way, but it's one way. So we do work closely with the disability community to make sure that voting is accessible at all the different levels. But sign language interpreters are very, very expensive as well. And to have one on hand just in case is always hard to do. I actually did a wedding once who were with two people who were deaf and wanted sign language. So that was a great experience, but it's not inexpensive.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for the question, Ashley. We're getting up on time here, but if anyone else has other follow-up questions, Gail, I have one that's sort of a softball, but what can we do to help? What are some specifically on your campaign? Are there ways that we can help you? And Rhiannon, feel free to drop some links into the chat about that. But Gail, take it away. What can we do as Democrats and members of the club to help you out?
Well, in addition to your promise every day doing something, we are walking every weekend. We're canvassing, knocking on doors, and that is really a great way to connect with voters. And even if they're not home, dropping that literature on their porch when they get home, they're like, oh, Gail was here. And that's just, so essential. And then we've got some fundraising. So definitely money helps drive the message. And so continuing to raise money and meet and greets and trying to get out there and meet as many people as possible. And, just encouraging people to vote. We're doing phone banking as well. So if anyone's wanting to do that, we've got phone banks going on. So I know Rhiannon, could you put her contact in there? Just if you're interested in helping, let her know, or go to the website at gailpellerinforassembly.com and click on, I think there's a volunteer link, and let us know what you're able to do. We have lawn signs still. So if you're in the district and don't have a lawn sign, getting that lawn sign out there is super, super important with that name ID, and and sending out emails, text messages, writing a letter to the editor. That is super important as well. And having that presence, just trying to get the word out in every way possible. Social media, knocking on doors, phones, the newspaper. I mean, we're just trying to hit everything. So if you've got a group or organization that you have an email list for, sending something out, hey, I met Gail, I'm going to be voting for her, and this is why, I'd be beyond grateful.
Awesome. Well, we've got one voter for you in the chat, our board member Janice, who I'm not related to at all, who's one of your newest constituents, I think, in Willow Glen in San Jose. She says you got her vote already. She's already voted. So congratulations. There's one in the bank.
Yeah.
I thought of another question.
Oh, good.
Go for it.
I hope it's a real softball.
Okay.
I do a lot of volunteer work with California Clean Money Campaign. Our long-term goal is public financing of campaigns. How do you feel about public financing of campaigns?
I would love it now. It's, I mean, I'm frustrated with these independent expenditures that to me are just legalized bullying and spreading of lies and deceit. And there's just really no place in civil political environments for that kind of activity to take place. And the amount of money that is spent on them, if we had invested that in housing or food programs or education or childcare, what a more beautiful world we would have. So it's just, yeah, I find it really frustrating when I hear about some of these huge expenditures being made. So yeah, I'd be all in favor of limiting. And, if I can't get elected based on my record and my message, then, that's the way it's going to go.
Should be a contest of ideas, not who's got the most money.
Exactly.
We'll have to keep fighting for that, because it's a struggle, I think, every cycle. And might even take a constitutional amendment at this point. But Carol Garvey, also from our board, would like to know what issue, I think we've talked a lot about an issue that you care about quite a bit. Is there an issue that you're most passionate about that you plan to work on in Sacramento if you are lucky enough to be elected?
Yeah, so mental health has profoundly impacted my family. And certainly after the last 2.5 years, we've all lived through this pandemic. Maybe you've had your own personal experience or someone you love. And, we're making strides to return mental health services to the state of California. We got the 988 emergency mental health hotline. We need mobile mental health care. We need more beds. We need more trained experts. We need mental health care in our schools, so our children are suffering. Suicide's the second leading cause of death for 10 to 15-year-olds. So we are in mental health is a public health crisis. It needs time, attention, resources. And so I want to champion that. And in Sacramento, I've met with Jim Bell as well, and I really respect the work he's done around this issue. And Rebecca Bauer-Cahan just passed that AB 988 to implement the emergency mental health hotline. So a lot of good people are doing extremely great work on this, and I want to join them. And I'd like to see a select committee on mental health in the state assembly, so we really can drill down and focus on the issue and make some great improvements in people's lives. So.
Excellent. Thank you. And again, thank you for your time, Gail. We really appreciate it. I'm going to drop one more quick link into the chat for the club purposes. If you were interested in our upcoming events, any of our upcoming lunches, please, that's the link you go to. It's our calendar. So all of our upcoming meetings are posted there. Gail, we'd obviously love to see you in the future, especially if you're elected. We'd love to have you back for the December 9th holiday party. So please think about putting that on your calendar. Yeah, and if, again, please get in the chat, get Rhiannon's information, and go to gailpellerinforassembly.com to learn more about the campaign and what you can do to help. And with that, I will kick it back to Craig for the final few minutes of our meeting and to wrap us up. And Gail, you're free to stick around, or you can get back to campaigning and have yourself a wonderful.
Take a few minutes, and I gotta drive over to San Jose.
Oh, great. Great. We'll see you soon.
Let's see, Peter, I think you already did a nice job letting folks know about our upcoming programs in November and December. So wanted to just ask if anyone in our meeting here has an announcement they would like to make. Just raise your hand or unmute yourself. Seeing no indication that there is one. Want to thank everybody.
Actually, I do have something to say. Sorry, I was trying to get off my picture, but I would just like to remind people that we have places like the DVC in Mountain View and the Democratic Center in San Jose, and particularly the one in Mountain View. We don't have many people coming in there, so we would love to see more people in that beautiful space, phone banking, picking up information to write letters, and using the facilities that we have to remind people to vote and get out the vote all over the country.
Super. Thank you, Jackie. Peter, maybe I also did want to ask, since we've got folks here, those who RSVP'd for today's in-person lunch and paid, is there a way we can credit those toward the November luncheon?
Yeah, we actually put out a notice to everyone who did pay in advance. So if you did pay in advance for today's lunch, obviously we didn't have the lunch portion. So you can pay that forward to a future lunch. Doesn't have to be November, but the next luncheon you want to attend, just drop us an email. You should go to that notice, reply to that email and say you'd either like a refund, or which is totally fine as well, or you'd like to pay it forward to a future lunch, and we'll make sure you're credited to the next lunch you want to attend. So just let us know that. If there's anyone left here. A lot of folks have already responded to let me know, but just to have folks email back to that.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see that, so please do credit me toward the November
Will do.
luncheon.
That seems to be most people's choice. So, and
Yeah.
Terry will be a great guest speaker.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, we'll have a big turnout, I think. So again, thanks everybody for coming, and we will see you in November. Remember to vote, and remember to do something every day between now and then to help with elections. Talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.